Alabama at Tennessee. Let's see the updated line here. This is the 3:30 Eastern CBS game, one of the most hyped games of the season so far, and I'm sure it's going to be one of the most watched and bet. Alabama 7.5 point favorite, over under 65.5. There's a lot of questions with who's going to play in this game. First of all, so like, is Bryce Young going to play? Is Cedric Tillman, who's one of the best receivers in the country, is he going to play for Tennessee? You have Tennessee's safety who was arrested. Heupel said they're still looking into it and gathering facts. You have one of their offensive linemen as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty, which is why, like, you see this line like pop 7.5 and 7, and I think there's like some wait and see. I took the 7.5 gladly with the uncertainty of, because if Bryce Young doesn't play, I think Tennessee wins this game. So, and if Bryce Young does play, I make the line like 7. So I'm fine with taking the hook with that uncertainty. And if Tillman comes back, Tennessee, look, and from an adjusted EPA per play, net EPA per play perspective this year, adjusted for competition, Tennessee's been better overall. But now, look, you have Alabama against, they played really bad teams. And then the two data points that we have is like they beat Texas by 1, but Ewers was shredding them. And, they played Texas A&M, but they didn't have Bryce Young in there, so their offense looked completely different. But I was really disappointed in how their secondary looked again. So they have really young corners. And I think Hooker is going to be able to move the ball through the air, especially if Tillman is in there. He can create even more mismatches for the other receivers who have played well in his absence. But Tillman is just a different talent, probably be a first-round draft pick. The other side of the ball, look, the Tennessee run defense is excellent, really good across the board in every metric. Their secondary stinks. So if Bryce Young plays, I still have some questions about the explosiveness of the Alabama offense, but they're going to score. If Bryce Young plays and is healthy, they're going to score, and they're going to be able to throw it easily on Tennessee. I just think Tennessee can catch up. I just took the 7.5 of the team I'm higher on than a lot in the market with the uncertainty at quarterback. But even if Young plays at 7, I still have some questions about this Alabama secondary. And we'll see what Tennessee can do in their secondary in order to just get a stop here or there. But curious to see how you see this playing out, because I think you're roll tide in this weekend.
Yeah, not a big bet, just a 1-unit bet on Alabama at 7. I wouldn't bet it at 7.5. And it was a really tough bet to make, because for me, this is a very cut and dry handicap. If Bryce Young is playing, you want to be on Alabama -7. If Jalen Milroe is playing, you want to be under 66. It's that easy, right? Because Tennessee is a great rush defense. They would be able to stop Jalen Milroe in his zone read. They would dare him to throw after 5 turnover-worthy plays against Texas A&M last week. They would happily invite Jalen Milroe to throw. But then again, if Bryce Young is in there, this number I don't think is going to stick at 7, right? Because a lot of people are out there asking, like, well, if Bryce Young is out of this game, is it going to go down even further? Well, you have to ask yourself, if he does play this game and the number sticks at 7, is that right? The answer is no. Tennessee is not. You take out home field advantage. Tennessee is not within 4 points of a power rating of Tennessee. This thing is telling me that Jalen Milroe is going to play. So I bought the Alabama -7. Now, Jalen Milroe is announced, to be playing. I can't see this thing going past 6.5. I can't. There's just going to be too many people out there betting on Alabama to keep that number propped up, but I just don't see it moving that much if Bryce Young is out. So from a market perspective, that's what I'm seeing. Like, this number already tells me that it's Jalen Milroe time, although that's not definitive, because Nick Saban won't give anybody any information, and nobody knows what Bryce Young's passing. And even if he is, can he complete a pass past 20 yards? Stuggy's right. The Alabama, core of wide receivers, the only one that's been explosive this year is Ja'Cory Brooks, at least from a yards per route run perspective. And Tennessee's secondary is atrocious. I mean, they're terrible, but at the same time, how are they going to get exposed by? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is the best option out of the backfield, but his average depth of target is negative. So, the key stat for me is Tennessee allows more first downs through the air on defense than almost any other team in the nation. You can move the chains all day through the air, but how's Alabama going to do that? Are they going to do that with Jalen Milroe? I don't think so. Will they do it with Bryce Young? Yeah, they will. So I see a lot more scoring opportunities if there's Bryce Young. even if he's hurt. If he can still complete 10-yard passes, he can still move the chains and get into scoring position. So I'm happy with sticking at Alabama at -7. I think if Bryce Young is confirmed in, that number goes up. If Jalen Milroe time, I don't think it's going to move that. The numbers aren't going to move at all. 6.5, 6. I just cannot see it going that far away from where the current market is right now. But you have to ask, I mean, as we focus so much on this quarterback, has anybody ever thought to look at what Alabama is doing on defense? Now, Stuggy mentioned that, the secondary for Alabama is pretty inexperienced, but Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold are two of the highest graded corners in all of PFF grading. Kool-Aid McKinstry can D up with anybody one-on-one. So, Jalen Hylett is starting to show out. He had a big old touchdown bomb, a couple of touchdowns, I think, against LSU. So, but you have to ask, what about the interior? What in the trench? Will Anderson had 10 pressures against Texas A&M. He's had like 23 pressures all year. He had 10 last week against the Texas A&M offensive line. He is playing like a madman right now. It does not matter where you run the ball. It does not matter where your quarterback goes. Will Anderson is going to find you. So I like Alabama at 7. It's not a love. It's not a heavy bet. I'm expecting Bryce Young to play. If he doesn't, then, the number will trickle down a little bit. I can get out of it live. But I will definitely be playing under if Jalen Milroe is indeed the starter.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama's pass defense numbers look good, and they're covered. But they played Utah State, UL Monroe, and Vandy. You're going to win by 100 in all those games, and that's half their games. But if you look at the Texas game, Ewers was picking them apart. Card was efficient, and then he even got banged up. And KJ Jefferson had some success. The one that scares me a lot is the fact that Haynes King was 25 of 45, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, like in like the ultra revenge spot. Haynes King the week before against Mississippi State was 6 of 13 for 40 yards and 2 picks. Against App State, he was 13 of 20 for 90 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, I don't know how he was moving the ball through the air against Alabama, and Hendon Hooker is astronomically better than Haynes King. And then Quinn Ewers was just dealing dimes, and Hooker's capable of doing that. So I do have some concerns about the Alabama secondary.
Haynes King was doing the 3-step drop and then throwing off of his back foot the entire day. Like,
it still worked. He hasn't been able to do that against anybody. So yeah, I have some concerns about their receivers and their defensive backs. And but you've known I've been high on Tennessee since the start of the year. So this is
I think it's justified.
This is the prove it.
Yeah, I think it's just, I'm not sitting here saying Tennessee is trash. Their secondary is trash. No one's been able to expose that, though. I mean, Tennessee secondary is trash, bottom 10 in coverage grading, and that's with 2 MAC schools and a backup quarterback at Pitt. So it's just the fact that no one's been able to expose that. So at least if Bryce Young gets in there, maybe in the intermediate range of 10 to 19 yards, there's something there. I mean, it's bettable at 7 in my opinion, but if he's not playing, just get me out of that spread and get me on the under.